Before I begin this video, let me state I've got no animosity at all towards the Celtic nations. Two of my closest friends are actually Irish, and although we enjoy a bit of needle when the Six Nations comes around, most of the time we get on just like anybody else. Broadly speaking, I, like most of my English brethren, think the Celtic nations are great. We're proud to be in a union with them as British people. Now, if they wish to go their own way, fair enough, no hard feelings, but it does seem to me, in the present global and political landscape, we'd be much better off standing together. Yet I have noticed that view doesn't tend to be as popular with the Celtic nations, who tend to view England as the historic oppressor, as this interview with people on the streets of Scotland points out.
I like being Scottish. I like what we stand for, not so much for the British.
No, I wouldn't want to be British.
Definitely not.
Why?
Why? Because I'm Scottish. I'm not British. Okay, and I don't believe in British value. What Britain has done is a lot of it is hidden in the things that we've exploited, and they exploit Scotland just the same way as they did to India, as the same done to every other colony. So I feel as though I'm living in a colony. But a lot of the people in Scotland are psychologically damaged because if you look at the papers and the media, it's constant all the time. And actually it's discrimination, and it might even be racism.
Sooner we get independence, the better, mate.
Really?
1,000,000%.
And to be clear, I very much respect these people's desire to maintain their historic, cultural and ethnic identity. That's admirable. However, I do wonder if the historic enmity towards the English has created a sort of victimhood culture there that's blinding our Scottish cousins to the real threats they face in modernity. For instance, when this guy on the screen says we never hear about the British Empire, I don't know what happens up in Scotland, but I can say growing up in England, you hear about the British Empire quite a lot and how we should feel guilty, how we've got white privilege, how we've ruined the world, how we deserve mass migration for the behaviour of our ancestors. It has always seemed to me that many of the Celtic nations wish to think of the English as if we're a blend between Henry VIII, Oliver Cromwell, and a white van man with an England flag outside his house, who, remember by the way, is very much despised and hated by our own politicians. Yet again, in my experience, most English people you meet tend not to really think about identity that much unless the football's on, and if they do, they're generally apologetic.
Between Irish and English people, who do the rest of the world like better?
Irish, 100%.
England fucking colonised the world, everyone's going to hate us. And Irish people are lovely.
Everyone's getting colonised by England. Like, who have we colonised? No one. We've been doing great, man. We've been helping people.
Irish. It's the accent. No one likes English.
Definitely Irish people. I don't think English are incredibly like anywhere besides England and maybe Wales.
Because of colonisation.
Those are your words.
The Irish. Because you probably think we're arrogant, which would probably be quite true.
Irish is very sexy right now with Barry Keoghan and Paul Mescal. A lot more people are coming over here. I don't know why. No, I do know why. No, I love Ireland. Love Ireland.
Americans love the Irish and don't like English, so.
I know I'm biased, but I think the English are quite sweet there. Toxic evil bigot that I am. But my soppy socks takes aside, the key point I'm trying to get here is what's the common denominator between the Celtic dislike of the English and the English self-loathing? In a simple word, it's colonialism, or perhaps more accurately, the perceived morality we're supposed to have around colonialism that's been handed down via the political, cultural and academic elite. To paraphrase, the culturally accepted view around colonialism these days is the British are a snarling, horrible, angry people who came out from our dreary island and decided to genocide people around the world for no reason whatsoever, then steal their resources and subjugate their people while creating racism while they were at it. Yet having been fed into the progressive meat grinder that is the modern education system myself, and then come through the other side and tried to find out what really happened myself, you realise the truth is a bit more nuanced than that. While many sins lay at the feet of the British Empire, we must remember before the British Empire, it's not as if the world was a place of milk and honey with rivers made of chocolate where people frolicked in racial and cultural harmony. The reality is the world before the British Empire was a complete bloodbath, and the world after it has been much, much more improved. The harsh reality is that the British Empire formed in a world where it was kill or be killed. You either become the empire or you get suckered into another one. This is Geopolitics 101, and although the British Empire did improve things, the reality is we still live under the American Empire to this day, or at least the people who control the American Empire. It's just more subtle. The Americans still have the military might, but they tend to govern through economic and cultural power. Yet the core point is, while the British Empire has its sins it has to acknowledge, it did incredible things in advancing the technology, well-being and lifespan of billions of people around the world that many are still benefiting from to this day. And ironically, of course, it was the Scots too that played a key role in the British monarchy as well as the British Empire. But why don't the Scots in the video that I showed you earlier want to acknowledge this? Now, I'm fully aware there are many great and based Celts who are truly aware to what's going on in the world, but it does seem there are large chunks of the Celts as well who've bought in to the progressive moral theology of the age. That's the idea that if you can be seen as the victim, you're somehow morally superior than other people. And we can see from the video with the English that they too have brought into the same moral model. They played down their identity. They see it as something broadly shameful, and that engenders the modern liberal progressive worldviews that they're supposed to have. Now this gets even more interesting when we understand what's going on through the modernist liberal lens. Through that, you're not really supposed to have a collective identity in this day and age. You know, the great prize of the West is individualism. We loose the chains of bigotry and find equality between man, no matter their background, no matter their gender. Yet as I've explored a lot on this channel, collective identity is an indelible part of life. It can have a shadow side, but it can have a light side as well. Yet in modernity, it must always be played down, and the only line we're really allowed on our collective identity is that which comes from the liberal mainstream. You know, being English is being about liking tolerance and being diverse and enjoying different food from around the world. In essence, an English collective identity in the positive is basically outlawed at this point, so no wonder the Celts cling on to their national identity through the back door via being the victims, which is something that the liberal system will allow. Yet as the eagle-eyed among you may have noticed, collective identity for the English isn't always frowned upon. They will accept it and in fact promote it if it's in the negative, i.e. I'm ashamed of English history. British history and the British Empire is something we should hang our heads over. But why? Well, my take is, if the powers that be can maintain the now obsolete historic enmities between Western nations, our very identities are pitched against one another, and that blocks us from seeing the power structures that rule over us in the contemporary era. Now, this brings to mind a group I heard about recently. They're a sort of rap, punk, hip-hop trio of some sort from Northern Ireland, and their whole thing is, you know, the Crown's keeping us down, we're gonna fight back and rebel. These guys are called Kneecap, and they were in the news recently because they performed at Coachella. That's an event for middle-class American trust fund kids where they talk about BLM and trans whatevers and dance around to some pop music while on drugs. These guys were in the news because of their alleged support of Hamas and because they got the Coachella crowd to sing Maggie's in a Box in reference to Margaret Thatcher being dead.
And here, if anybody was wondering, Margaret Thatcher is still dead. Maggie's in a box, in a box. Maggie's in a box. Na 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 na. Maggie's in a box, in a box. Maggie's in a box.
So edgy, singing Maggie's in a Box about a politician who died 12 years ago and who ended her premiership 35 years ago. I mean, we have MPs sitting in the House of Commons now that were born over a decade after her premiership ended. So why do they do it? Well, it's the same as all of these left-wing things. It's like BLM. They want to make out they're the oppressed and life is so rough for them so they can look like the heroic freedom fighters and play to middle-class audiences and look cool on Instagram. Now they're banging on about all this self-determination for the Irish when the Irish are being made a minority in Ireland in real time, just like the English are being made a minority in England and the French are being made a minority in France. So my point is that the left-wing Scotnats, as well as the rebels reawakening the spirit of the IRA, aren't fighting against the system, they're fighting for the system. In essence, while they try to act like Che Guevara, they're basically just useful idiots for money power. It seems to me if we're to stand a chance at maintaining our nations into the future, we have to stand together. And in doing that, we may see that we have a lot more in common than we don't. As always, these are my views. Do let me know what you think down below, and do consider subscribing to the channel. You can also join the Substack if you want exclusive content. Enjoy the rest of your day.